We'll start off with an opening statement from Coach, and then open questions for the student athletes, dismiss them, and then go back to questions for Coach. We'll do in-person questions first, and then for those joining us on Zoom, we'll answer your questions after. Whenever you're ready, Coach.
Yeah, it's great to have South Carolina in the SEC. At other times, it's bad. We love that they're in representing and doing what they're doing, but it makes it really hard when you have to play these guys a couple times a year because they're very, very physical. They're talented. They're well coached. They've got everything that makes the number one team in America what they are. But it's a good gauge for us. We embraced the opportunity. We just didn't make enough shots. They get a lot of credit for that. But this group right here just finished playing 7 games in 15 days. That's hard to do. So I've got no disappointment. That's why you shoot 5 for 31. That's why we have a hard time making layups. It's nothing wrong with our kids, nothing wrong with our team, but it's 7 games in 15 days, plus travel. That's 4 road games in that. So I was proud of how our group embraced it. I was proud of how we fought yesterday, and on no legs today fought, I think, the best team in the country.
Questions for Samara or Michaela? And please designate who you're directing your question to.
Teresa Walker, the Associated Press. Samara, what is the challenge when you're on the court trying to get into your offense and trying to get around some of the bigs that they've got?
Just the fact that South Carolina is such a good defensive team. 1 through 5, they're all good. And when a big switches on you, they're still defending you like a guard is. Just the fact that when you get to the basket, having that composure, finding somebody, they're still we consider them like trees, and getting in there, getting down there, it's kind of hard to find that open person because they're so much bigger than myself and Michaela and the rest of our teammates. So just the fact that they're so good defensively.
Any other questions for the student athletes? Thank you, ladies. You're all set. Opening questions for Coach. Please raise your hand.
Coach, you said yesterday that Missouri win was so important for your NCAA hopes. Now that we're looking forward to the selection show, do you feel that your team has done enough to find that field of 68?
Absolutely. There's no question in my mind. There's not a metric that I've ever heard them talk about that we don't pass that test. You look at who we've played, where we played, how we've played. That's what we always talk about. We went on the road. We played people. We brought people home. We accepted the challenge of playing every single night. We didn't COVID out of one thing in 2 years. They said that was going to, go into play. So everything that's ever been talked about, it's just a matter of where. There's not a metric. We're going to plan a party like we're in it, because I've been studying it for a lot of years. If I'm wrong, I'll be very, very surprised.
Mike, Chantel Jennings with The Athletic.
Good to
nice
see you.
to see you.
Yeah, you too.
You mentioned that you think South Carolina is the number one team in the country, in your view. There are some pretty obvious reasons, I think, even to those of us in the room who haven't coached college hoops for 20 years about why that is. But I'm curious for you as a coach, what are the small things that they do that differentiate themselves from good to elite? Yeah, and
Sam brought it up. Their bigs can guard your guards, and their guards can guard your bigs. And that makes, everybody's like, how do you get space against them? Steffi asked me that at halftime. How do you create more space? I said, I'm not sure you can. There's not an offense that's been able to do it. I think Stanford runs some of the best offense in the country as well, and they had a hard time with it. So I think we are all witnessing what it looks like when you look at what the roster that Dawn has put together and her staff. I mean, they bring in – I looked at one matchup card, Lacey Goldwire that does our matchups. I said, are you sure that's who they have in right now? I was like, we don't have anybody. I mean, it was just size after size after size. And it's athletic size, and it's together. They play together. It's just the total package. I think that's what – I just don't think there may be a day that they're off, but you're going to have to beat them. They're not beating themselves. I think the first loss of the season when they lost at Missouri, we were all like, oh, man, now they're going to be so focused. And they have been. She's really got them locked in. But then it's demoralizing at times too, in that you think you're playing good and you look up and you're down 12, or you think you've had a little good run. We held them scoreless for like 3 minutes there, and it felt like a small victory. But then next thing you know, it's back to 15 and 17. It's just got a compounding effect that it wears on you. And I know it gets frustrating for me, and I know it gets frustrating for kids because it is so hard to just function because you think you're open and then they're there. But I looked down, we had 11 block shots. They only had 8. Now, that's not a stat that matters, but I do think it matters to us about that we're not backing down from it. You know, we're taking it in there, and Jersey having to guard the people she's had to guard this year out of position. But to your point, your question, I think it's the fact that they're good at a lot of things. There's not one thing. I think if you ask 10 different coaches, you might get 10 different opinions because they're good at so many things.
We've got some questions on Zoom. How will the team spend the next week and a half before Selection Sunday?
Yeah, resting the first 3 days of it. I'll give them off till Monday. We'll start, rehab, prehab, get back in the gym on Tuesday, Wednesday. We'll probably have another day off in the middle of the week. Then we'll get back together for Sunday and get back to work, find out who we're going to play, and turn our attention. It's a long gap. It's really hard for the conferences that have their tournament this week. You got to stay sharp. We'll have a scrimmage game. We'll bring our white squad guys in and have a scrimmage game kind of midweek to try to simulate staying in game shape. But a lot of rest, a lot of film, a lot of recovery, a lot of time in the training room, and then back to the practice floor middle to the end of the week.
How much did the second chance points for South Carolina affect the game?
That's probably the difference. We hold them to 37.3% field goal percentage, which is really good to hold them to. But again, when they're sticking back 20 offensive rebounds and 42 points in the paint, 19 second chance, that's got that demoralizing compounding effect that we were talking about. I wouldn't say it was the difference in the game. Again, they do so many other things well, but it was the difference in this particular game.
That's all we have for you.
All right,
Thank you,
thank
Coach.
you.